think we've entered a phase of capitalism that's not techno-feudalism. It's not something we've ever seen before. It's kind of a realization of the most primitive, brutal, violent forms of coercion that happens within wage work. And the apotheosis of this is obviously Donald Trump, who uses the fear of life and death and employment like a mob boss in dealing with other countries and dealing with people in America. But that's just where I am right now.
Well, you have a series on your Cluanon channel, and wherever people are watching or listening to the show, we're going to link the Cluanon channel there so they can find your 5-part series that you did do with Riley over here. But you and I were on the phone maybe a couple weeks ago. Maybe it was in this week. I don't remember. It's not important. But being on the phone with you, you brought up a movie that I hadn't seen in forever called Scarface. And you brought up both Scarfaces, and I had not seen, I had never seen the 1932 one. But to prepare for this conversation, you cannot talk to Catherine when unprepared.
Okay.
I
Tell that to my students.
Oh well, they are effing up.
Okay.
I rewatched Scarface with some of our patrons on TIR, and it's never one of my favorite films. And
Which one, the De Palma one or the Howard Hawk one?
And like I said, I did watch the 32 one before I drove up here, but both of them deal with immigrant Tonys.
Mm-hmm.
The 1983 one with a very maybe racist vision of Cuban Americans.
They're racist. All both of these films are racist. But Martha Nachemson calls the two Tonys the immigrant gangster protagonist, and they embody this kind of outsiderishness, which I really, really think is important. Rather than waving our hands around and saying they're racist, they're cartoonish, but it has to do with some deep idea of how America is seeing itself and seeing the other. So the other thing that's laid on in 1983 is the anti-communist element, because they're all Cuban exiles. Castro is literally in the film sending us their criminals, which is what Trump, not their best, which is literally what Trump is saying. I mean, I think Fidel did some things like that, but what. Anyway, so they send the criminal element to Florida, but the other thing is that they kill a communist who's a dissident with regard to Castro in the camps. That's the first job that Tony has. Remember that?
I do, and so both movies, not necessarily open, but kind of the first act is going to shock you into the levels that both Tonys are going to go to get some sort of approval, right? To make it in the underworld, they're going to have to do the ultimate crime, which is commit murder. Mm-hmm. And 1932 Scarface opens with the murder scene. There's a little more exposition in 83.
Right. And it's the murder of another mob boss. But, I'm going to give a big shout out to Martha Nachemson's book called Dying to Belong, Gangster Movies from Hollywood to Hong Kong. And what she talks about is the two Tonys are dying to belong to America. It's not dying to belong to the underworld. The underworld is their path to becoming American. They don't know what being American is except through the most material, superficial forms, right? So there's this drive to make money, and this drive to make money has no end. And it's the fastest way to make money. And this is why I was saying, with Nachemson's thesis is so great, because these are people so lost with regard to modernity. They've been plucked out of their traditional worlds. I mean, De Palma's traditional world is like some weird idea of anti-communist Cuba, right? But Tony Kamade in 1932 comes from this immigrant family, tenement, living in New York City. And there's this, and what she writes about, which is so great, is that they are literally confused about who they are, about how to be American, about what success should look like. So she says they only see the accoutrements of success. They literally lust after clothes.
Yeah.
And I think that's so fascinating. And then they lust after the women of their bosses, right? And she says there's some total disjunction between their selves, their inner selves, which have no time to develop, and this outer appearance that becomes more and more glamorous as time goes on. They're crazy, right? And I was thinking about this in terms of just go-go capitalism and the Chinese, economic miracle from the 90s to now. And the Chinese rich people, they're very gangsterish because they too have been plucked out of a socialist world, thrust into the world of consumerism and capitalism. They want to have the pertinences of success, right? There was this one rich guy where I brought to UCI. This was hilarious. He had all this money, but we were thinking maybe he would donate some to the university. He comes in with a Gucci like back, what do they call it? Fanny pack, like in front on his stomach, and he's got like a polo shirt. He looks like a gangster, and of course the university people are like, oh, what is this? They don't know how to deal with him, and he doesn't know really how to interface with liberal institutions. And so Nachemson says, like, in the 1920s and 30s, when there's all these immigrants coming from Southern Europe, right, Italy, and Eastern Europe, they're still coming. The Daughters of the American Revolution put out all these pamphlets, and they distribute them through the immigrant communities. This is very pertinent to us right now. All the Daughters of the American Revolution claim to be descended from the original Pilgrims, right? So they're like these waspy ladies, and the pamphlets front pages, be American. And it's like, is it so easy to just turn yourself from an Italian immigrant from Sicily into an American? And she says this dilemma about how superficial it is that you could just transform yourself like this is something that each of the gangster protagonists in both Scarfaces have. It's like, how do I be American? Like, I've arrived here. Who is going to accept me? And the Americans are telling me, like, you are not American. So how do I get to the level of Americanness? I'm going to commit crimes. I'm going to, make money as fast as possible, hustle my ass, do what is unthinkable. And both Tonys end up with like huge wads of cash after they've done their first crime, right? But that substance, it just is not enough, right? They're still lusting after like the next thing. I need the boss's wife. I need the beautiful house.
Does it feel like both of them though understand capitalism as the ability to, how can I put this? In watching both films, both of them see these hits as just a way to get at the table so they can kill the next guy. They're for me, I don't know if you see it the same way. I see both Tonys as looking at these men as weak, and that's why they can lust after those women. It's a test. And again, I know we come from similar backgrounds, but not the same. But there's certain types of, I hate to say this word out loud, alpha male individuals. When they're that, if they're that violent, right? This is, like you said, this is a cartoonish level of violent individual. It's going to kill someone and does not care about it 5 seconds later. They are going to look at the person that paid them as, are you a punk or not? And that's how both those Tonys read that guy in the room. You're talking down to me because that's all you have. I'm going to kick your ass and take your chick.
Well, so this is what we're told is hustle culture in the Horatio Alger story. Like, you go from zero, you go from rags to riches, and they're both like parodic versions of this ascent, right? They have nothing. They literally have nothing. We see in 1983 how Al Pacino's Tony has zero, right? He's literally in a refugee camp. Yeah. Well, he starts out without even being dishwasher in a refugee camp, living under a freeway in Miami, right? And the other Tony, we see his home and where his immigrant mother's from. And so what you have to be is enterprising and always ambitious. This is a more explicit sort of taking the place of the person above you that happens all the time in corporate America. All my girlfriends or friends who work in corporate America say, once you've ascended to a certain level, there are like 50 people after your job. So I don't even think that the Tonys are actually they don't think of it as capitalism. They just think of it as reality. Like, this is their reality. They could either be a dishwasher and work for low wages. The other Tony he would work for in a grocery store, an Italian restaurant or something. Or you can be really enterprising and you can be part of the grind and you can hustle your ass, you can kill your boss and get his girlfriend. But the whole thing is about wage labor. Like, they're recruited, they get a job, they do their job really well. You do your job really well and you think, what's the next step? And there's this hunger to belong. This is what Nachemson says, is that they want to belong to America. And all they see in America is the commodities that you can wear. The commodities that you can wear on your arm, that soon you can buy in your house, and everything is about making more money. So you get to one level and you want more and more and more. And you know what? In official overworld culture, that's just called being ambitious. That's just having the mindset of the grind set. Whatever these Andrew Tate people are saying, this is about being like a successful man for people who are so disoriented by displacement. Both Tonys are deeply displaced people. They're trying to find their place in the world, and the advertising the sign outside of the
World
Tony's,
is yours.
the world belongs to you. This is what advertising keeps telling them, right? And they misread that sign, or they're so called out by that sign to say, I need to take the world. I want to seize the world. In the meantime, like the daughters of the American Revolution, the Puritans in America are like, don't eat too many fruits and vegetables. You eat too much garlic. You have to be proper and measured and be Warren Buffett-esque, rule with $500 billion, but drive your old 1972 Dodge Dart. Like that whole WASPy code, they can't even read. And when you think about it, Hollywood is made up of nothing but immigrants, especially in the 20s and 30s. So they are, they're allegorically like Louis Meyer, Samuel Goldwyn. These guys came from the streets of the Lower East Side, and they are fucking hustlers, man. And they built an empire, and the world belonged to them. For a long time, the studios came up, and these working class Jewish men, tough guys, created a universe where the gangster film is kind of the jewel in the crown. And the other thing that's interesting about it is, the Production Code Association, which was censoring people in the early 30s, they were policing the gangster film the hardest because they thought that the messages that they were giving were glorifying criminality. So this is why you have to fall. This is the original reason why Tony can't succeed. And in 1983, Tony fails in this really spectacular way. But according to the early days of the code, you cannot glorify criminal lives.